Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is your news and week in review. And yes, it is indeed Sunday. You are not wrong. The week in review this week is going up Sunday instead of Saturday, primarily because I was at I was at Orange Nebula, ONEB, for their Vestige campaign launch. We will talk about that more as well. But I got back way too late and did not have a chance to film my week in review before Saturday and all that. So Saturday just had 2 videos instead of the week in review. But either way, we are here now with our week in review where we'll catch up on all the things you may have missed, and then we'll be back on schedule as usual, tomorrow's 2 back or not back. With that said, let's go ahead and start this off. Although before we start this video off, just a quick note, we did do a giveaway 2 weeks ago, sort of. I announced the winners last week, but I forgot to announce them in the video itself, and I put them in the comments. So in case you missed that comment, I put a pinned comment. But in case you missed that, based on this video right here, I'm not reviewing these 5 games, but I'm giving them away instead. I gave away those 5 games, and they went to 1936. Well, they didn't go to 1936. From the 5 games, 1936 went to, oh my gosh, I have to look close on my bullet points. Francis Coronora 484. Dune went to Rob Trott. We have Invincible went to HVG3 AKAEK. We have Undaunted Stalingrad went to ABC Kid 66, and we have War for Chicken Island went to Jesse Chapman 9347. Some of those have still not been claimed. Some have, but some have been claimed. Some have still not been claimed. So if you are those people, try to go ahead and reach out to me at alex@boardgameco.com. Please do not respond to anyone else in the comments telling you one and that you just message them on wherever, on WhatsApp or who knows where. But just message me at alex@boardgameco.com to claim your prize. That is basically 2 weeks ago's giveaway, announced last week, announced here again, just for transparency's sake. With that, we're going to go into the news pieces, starting off with Cascadia Junior, which is easily my favorite news piece this week. We have Cascadia Junior coming soon from AEG, and it's going to be bringing you Cascadia Junior. Is it going to be good? No idea. Will I like it? No idea. Will it be a true homage and testament to the game that actually stands well and does a good job, or not? No idea. But I am interested because I love Cascadia so much, and because they haven't given me enough reason to be disinterested. What a weird thing to say, Alex, you might say to yourself, but that's because if you look over here at Board Game Geek, we have Castles of Burgundy, or more specifically, the Sandcastles of Burgundy is going to be a children's-friendly version of a Castle of Burgundy that has you playing with sandcastles and crabs and something like that. I'm not entirely sure what's going on in this picture over here. There's a little bit of description. You collect points by finding the right decorations so you can remember under which sandcastle the animals of the Royal Guild are hiding. I can't tell if this is a memory game with crabs or who knows what. I love Castle of Burgundy, and maybe I'll try this if I learn more about it or who knows what. But as of right now, the Sandcastles of Burgundy holds no interest to me as a kids game version of Castle of Burgundy, because it's given me enough reason to believe that it's given me enough reason to be less interested. I don't know what's going on with this memory seeming game and the crabs. I just don't know what's happening over here. Maybe I'll try it, especially if people say it's good, I'll try it, or if they show more information that makes me want to try it. But as of right now, I am incredibly disinterested in this kid-friendly version of the Castle of Burgundy, despite being very, very interested in the kid-friendly version of Cascadia. Again, no idea whether either one will be good, bad, who knows what. I'm just going based on what I'm seeing, and what I'm seeing is different from these 2 games. Anyways, moving on in less board game news, well, not less board game news, but less new board games. We have Asmodee over at Board Game Wire. We have Asmodee announcing acquisitions. They have their eyes set on more than 20 buyout targets. If you remember, way back when Asmodee was first becoming this scary giant that everyone is terrified of, they did so partially by buying up all the companies you know and love, or at least a lot of the companies you know and love. Days of Wonder gone, Fantasy Flight gone, Plaid Hat Games temporarily gone before they got it back. So a lot of game companies were purchased and bought up by Asmodee in their rise to fame, and it looks like they are set to do so again. Although while they're looking at the future and trying to grow, a lot of people are actually afraid and hopeless and despair, frustration, sadness. Another article on Board Game Wire goes into the Trump tariffs and the possible consequences. And again, this is kind of one of those weird situations. The whole article will have a lot more, but my own small little take on it is, if you remember when Trump was president the first time round, there were fears of tariffs hitting board games, and board games were avoided. Board games were not hit by any of the planned tariffs, which is good, because if board games are hit by tariffs, your board game prices are going up. I guarantee it. Board games cannot sustain the margins that the tariffs are planned around. So like when you have someone making a, video game shit, they might be able to go ahead and survive those margins. board games, then margins are too narrow and they'd have to massively increase their prices, which is bad enough on its own. The part that makes crowdfunding very, very tricky is crowdfunding sets their prices in advance, like a year and a half, they set the prices in advance. They tell you, hey, buy this thing today, and then later the price goes up and they're like, I already sold it for $100. And now I have to sell it for $150, but I already sold it. What do I do? There's massive problems when you make changes in pricing in a crowdfunding model that makes crowdfunding very, very hard to manage. So there's a lot of uncertainty as to how to actually handle that. Nobody wants to be the creator who launches a campaign, sells you a game, and then comes at you for more money down the road. Nobody wants to be that. Some people have to be that because they have no choice, but nobody walks into crowdfunding thinking, whatever, I'll charge $100. If I need to charge an extra $50 to deliver the game, I will. Nobody's that glib about it and plans to do that. And so people are very, very afraid as to how do you run an actual business, both in terms of the actual knowledge of how much a game will cost and selling it for more than you ever wanted to or think you can, but also in crowdfunding, how do you manage crowdfunding when you don't have that certainty? If you charge too much now, you run the risk of people not buying your game, and you may not even be able to, the tariffs may not come into effect, and then you don't know what to do. Well, and you probably keep the money, but you haven't sold enough of the game, and people will be like, wait, you charge more because of the tariffs. The whole thing's a mess. The whole thing's a complete mess. And for someone like myself, I fall in the camp of thinking, it's probably not a big deal. The tariffs probably won't happen. They didn't happen last time. Not to say tariffs won't happen anywhere, but in the board game space, I assume they won't happen. Probably, maybe. The problem is my glib sureness that it probably won't happen, a sureness based on nothing other than the fact that it didn't happen last time, to be very clear. This is not a in-depth analysis. This is just me not worrying until I need to worry. The problem is, if you are a creator, you need to worry now because you can't just... There's an expression about the idea of, like, if you worry for something, you're paying the cost twice. The idea that worry is this emotion and fear and feeling that you don't actually have to deal with until the bad thing happens. But sometimes you have to plan around whether the bad thing will happen. So it's easy for me to not worry, but I don't have to base my entire, next year and a half of how I do business, or even if I stay in this industry, based on the lack of knowledge around this is going to play out. So I understand anyone who is terrified or afraid or uncertain, because it is definitely a big deal if you are a board game creator. It is less of a big deal if you are a board game consumer. I mean, it definitely will affect you, but it's certainly less of a big deal for you. So yeah, this is a big deal. Board Game Wire covers a bit more of the article and goes into it, but if you want... Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to deal with in the uncertainty of this world. Anyways, that is what we have for the news, which brings us to our Creator Spotlight. For our Creator Spotlight, we have Danielle Standring, who I have over on Instagram right now because I don't really use TikTok, but she's very, very present on TikTok, definitely present on Instagram. She has been present on the YouTubes, but I don't think as actively. Does she still do shorts? I don't know. I think it's more Instagram and TikTok, but I could be wrong. Could be YouTube as well. But either way, Danielle Standring, she's a very prolific creator who does a lot of short reels that are immensely entertaining. I have talked about her before on the channel. She is a close personal friend, but her content is entertaining. That's the main thing I'd go for. The way she presents board games adds a bit of a spark, a bit of a drama, a bit of a little bit of a, how do you even describe it? The way she presents board games is not what I would think the way board games would be presented, but it works. There's a degree of seriousness. She says, come for the coffee, stay for the crap parenting advice, purveyor of satire and lover of games, and all of that holds up in her content. Her content is short, it's a minute long, it's immensely entertaining, it teaches you about the game, so it's informative while making sure that you are engaged the whole time, so you're not interested in just tapping to the next video, because the whole thing is just a comedy routine disguised as an introduction to a board game in a way that does a service to herself, to the creators of the board games, and both to board games as a hobby as well as comedy in general. If you have not found Danielle Standring yet, if you have not seen her content yet, it is definitely a channel you want to subscribe to, either on Instagram or on TikTok, or possibly on YouTube, although again, I'm not sure if there's actually there. Links to everything down below, but just watch a few reels here and there, you won't be disappointed. Anyways, that is what we have for our Creator Spotlight for our News of the Week, which brings us to our Videos of the Week. Our Videos of the Week. What do we have for you? What do we have for you over here? For the Videos of the Week, we had Sunday had a Purging campaign games video, just walking through step 1 of a 2-part video of me going through the games I'm purging. Step 1 was the games that were surviving. Step 2 will be coming later this week, and that is the games that are leaving. For my various campaign games, which games are leaving. I did have a few that I missed. I can't remember all of them, but Earth Under Siege was one that I missed in the video because it's over there on this side of the shelving, which I forgot about. But Earth Under Siege is staying, at least for now, at least until I complete play it more. I think there may have been one or two others. Somebody else pointed out another game that I went by and missed. But there were some games I missed. The games I missed, if you saw a game in the video and I missed it, it's one that is staying, because the ones that are leaving have already been removed from the shelves. Anyway, that was Sunday. Later on, Monday, we had 2 back not to back, going through a bunch of crowdfunding campaigns. We should have another 2 back not to back for you this week as well. On Wednesday. Oh, Wednesday was a rough run. Wednesday was a video about AI art. I titled it "AI art is not theft," but that doesn't mean it's okay. But it definitely was. I don't want to dive back into this right now. I really don't, because I don't have the bandwidth for it. And when I say bandwidth, the problem is this is a serious conversation. It was my 2-second takeaway from it. If you want to skip the entire video, is I do not believe AI art can be categorized as theft, and I believe arguments to call it theft usually shift the goalpost from anyone's actual concern. I think the people, not anyone's, I shouldn't say anyone's, from a lot of the concern. I think a lot of people who are against AI art, I said 2-second takeaway, it's not going to be 2-second takeaway, is it? A lot of the people who are against AI art, I believe, would be against it whether or not you could label it as theft. If I were an artist, a very popular artist, if I'm the Micho, and I sit there and say, hey, analyze all of my own art, and then now going forward, create my own art in my own style for board games, and I'll never touch a single drawing tool again, I'll just have AI do it in my own style, I think everyone would agree in that case that it's definitely totally not theft, and yet I think most people would still have a problem with it if you have a problem with AI art. I think calling it theft sets up an argument that is easily defeatable, and I shouldn't say easily defeatable, easily arguable, because I think it is complicated, but easily arguable, and changes the actual conversation that anyone wants to have. But at the same time, I do not think AI art is okay. I think it has permanent ramifications. I think it is problematic. I think that there are times and places where it might be okay, and times and places where it's definitely not, and everyone's going to have their own opinion of where that line is. And in the video, I say I'm very for regulation, whether it's industry-wide regulation, whether it's legal regulation. I think that currently the way it is trending is problematic, and I don't like it. That's the overall take. But I did title the video "AI art is not theft," and that doesn't mean it's not, but that doesn't mean it's okay. Which means that a lot of people engaged far more with the stance they thought I had, or the first 4 words of the title, as opposed to either the entire title or the entire video. And by the way, that's on me. I specifically tried avoiding it being clickbait by titling it the full title. Instead of just saying AI art's not theft and then leaving the rest for the video, I had both in the thumbnail and the title specifically saying, but that doesn't mean it's okay. My goal was to avoid it being pure clickbait, where it's just about the rage and more about, hey, I want to say the controversial thing, because I do think that the challenge that it's not theft is an argued point, meaning it specifically was a hot title to pull people in, but I wanted to avoid being clickbait. Obviously, I missed the mark, because if, 30% of the people who watched the video responded in frustration and disagreement, but often not disagreeing with things I actually said, the amount of people who said things in the comments that are presented as a way to disagree with me, even though they clearly don't. Like when someone would say, what if somebody would copy all your content? Would you be okay with that? And I'd be like, no, I wouldn't be, which is why I call for regulation in the video. Like, there's a lot of instances of people bringing up a point that I agreed with. There are a lot of people who said in the video, when a machine copies and when a human copies, it's different. I'm like, good. I said that in the video. There's a lot of people who are responding, artists themselves, who are responding to the points they thought I had and not the points I had. Now, again, when 30% of your audience does that, that does mean that I made a miscall on the title and the thumbnail, and while I was trying to pull it back from clickbait, didn't do so enough. And clickbait's controversial in its own nature, because everything I said in the thumbnail is something I believe in and agree in, but I definitely drew attention more to the hot topic as opposed to calling the video AI art is complicated, let's talk about it. Like, for example, that might have been a better title. I probably should have gone with that, but this is hindsight. But either way, that was Wednesday's video, and the problem is I had Wednesday's video go up while I was traveling, and when I do videos like that, I try to be more engaging, because I don't just want to like drop something hot and then walk away. I want to engage, and I want to meaningfully engage. And so I did so, but that meant I was distracted while traveling while that video went up and got a lot of engagement. And it was interesting to see the engagement, because there are, like I said, like 30% of people who watch the video are like, you're wrong, here's why you're wrong, and didn't actually say anything I disagree with. Then lots of people did watch the video and were like, why are people disagreeing with you and they're not actually disagreeing with you? Which I appreciate those people, because they actually watched the video. And then there are a small portion of people, maybe a small amount of people, who are focusing on the presentation of the title and thumbnail. And to that, I ultimately agree. My intent was not to be in that zone. My intent was to pull back from clickbait so that it gave the hot thingy, but then made it clear I don't fully agree with the hot thingy and also pulled you in. Well, I do agree with I do believe it's not theft, to be clear, but I don't believe it's okay. But either way, small misstep, but that was Wednesday's video. Anyways, moving on, we had Friday's video was retailers and crowdfunding. This is an older video I did, not that old. It's filmed it maybe a month ago, but it was actually about something from like 6-7 months ago. But it was a topic about just the nature of retailers and crowdfunding and the way it works when a retailer has your game, has a crowdfunding game. Sometimes before you, sometimes not. What goes on there? What does that relationship look like? And how does that happen? And that was everything that happened on, that was as far as the regular videos of the week. As far as the games we covered last week, we have the following. We had last week on Saturday, we had a review for Nyakuza. Nyakuza is from Simon. It's a reimplementation of Orango. I thought it was a good tile-laying game from Reina Knizia, but amongst many, many good tile-laying games from Reina Knizia, and this one did not pull me enough to keep it. I definitely enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it. I was like playing it. I was like, oh, this is good. But then there's so many of those games from Reina Knizia. There's so many of those tile-laying games that fall into a similar vein that I find I don't have room for all of them in my collection. Later on Saturday, we had a review for Catharsis Divine Wrath. I enjoyed the gameplay mechanics of Catharsis, but I do not like the visual appeal, and because of that, it's one that I know myself, and I know I will not table it, despite thinking that it does a good job of being a accessible boss battler with high degree of player asymmetry. I just really can't get behind the presentation of the game, which is something I was worried about before I ever played it, and it's why I never picked it up. But then the publisher sent me a copy to review, and sure enough, everything I thought about the game was true. Call it confirmation bias or not, but I enjoyed the gameplay mechanics and had no interest in the visual presentation, and that to me is not great. Like, it's one thing if I'm critical of visual presentation, but I really, really, really do not like the visual presentation. I find it's not just the art, not just the graphic design, but there's tons of cars, tons of text, it's a huge table presence, lots of things that pull it back for me, despite the gameplay mechanics being good. On Tuesday we had a review of Revenant from Mind Clash Games. Very much enjoyed Revenant. Overall, I gave it a tentative rating of either a 4 if things are slightly changed, or a 3.5 if it's exactly the way it is today. Because overall, I think people who like Mind Clash Games will love Revenant. For me, it definitely falls into that zone of being a little heavier than what my ideal target game weight is, and to that end, it would be a 4. And the caveat is, I did feel that the Voidfall that you're fighting, the Voidborn that you're fighting against in the game, I felt they were a little too much. Like, they took up too much of your time and attention in the game, and didn't let you spend as much time and attention on doing the things you wanted to do. And I said if they can dial that in a drop, like, I do like the Voidborn, I think they're important, but they have to dial that in a drop. And I posted the video, and that was basically my opinion, either 3.5 or 4. The designer of Revenant actually commented on the video that they've been doing a lot of playtesting, and they completely agree. They have found that the Voidborn are a little bit too much for the rules that the prototype I have currently have it set at, and they are making tweaks to adjust that. So effectively, they are aware of and in agreement with my sort of asterisk critique. So I think with that in mind, it probably will be a 4. Obviously, I haven't played it at the changes they've made, but it's just worth noting. Like, if you were watched that review and you didn't read the comments, they absolutely agree with that main kind of aspect, and they're making their own tweaks as well, which is nice, by the way, because sometimes I have critiques and the publisher doesn't agree, which is totally fine, but I do appreciate when a game is more tailored for what I liked, I guess, or even just the validation that the complaint I have, like, it makes sense and it's not just something that's just me. Like, it's interesting being a board game reviewer, because sometimes you have opinions that are just you, and sometimes you have validation that your opinions are accepted by others, whether it's the companies, the designers, the masses, whoever it is. But, like, there is something weird. Like, I don't just want to be an opinion that everyone agrees with, because then what's your unique voice? But then I also don't want to be someone who's that far from the masses, because then why are people paying attention? Like, there's this weird sweet spot where you want to be, like, close enough to everyone else that your opinion is clearly not crazy, but not so close to everyone else that your opinion isn't adding to the conversation. Honestly, it's probably a video in its own right. Anyways, where do we have next? We had, that's Revenants, we had A Waste of Parts. A Waste of Parts, Meg actually reviewed this one on the channel. I played A Waste of Parts, got one game in, and I didn't think I was entranced by it. Meg dove further into the game, playing it solo as well, and so she ended up reviewing it. For me, The Waste of Parts was not a bad game in any way. For me, I'd probably give it a 3, based on my one play, but for me, The Waste of Parts is It is a totally fine game in the genre, but I don't think it did anything extra to pull me in when it's fighting in the same zone as games like Zombicide, Massive Darkness, any kind of dungeon crawler-esque game. I actually saw a bunch of people who are commenting because Meg also called it a dungeon crawler in the video, and some people were like, "Why is this a dungeon crawler?" And I'm like, I'm pretty sure it has all the typical things a dungeon crawler has. You have, new rooms being explored; they're being layered over instead of explored. You're moving around a board. You are upgrading your characters. Enemies are walking around as they try to fight you. Like, thematically, it's not a dungeon crawler, but mechanically it definitely shares the same high notes as most dungeon crawlers that I have. And ultimately, I think that for me, A Waste of Parts, I liked the presentation of the game, but the gameplay was just fine. Like, there wasn't a specific hook that pulled me in contrast to with other dungeon crawlers, with other games in the genre that I've played. Then later on Tuesday, we had a review for God's Heist, which unfortunately already canceled. I really enjoyed God's Heist. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I think it is a very clean game. My one caveat is, similar to the way I gave a kind of asterisk review on Revenant, I do wonder if God's Heist is a game that will go down, my rating will go down over multiple plays. Because I did find that as much as I enjoyed the gameplay, and I did find it to be a slightly unique puzzle or presentation of this kind of game, I do think that the individual missions felt a little too samey mission to mission, and to that end, I like it. I like it a lot, but I don't know if it's going to have staying power because of because of the way that plays out. That was Tuesday. Later we had Tanares Adventures covered on Thursday. Tanares Adventures Central Sea and whatnot. I enjoyed Tanares Adventures Central Sea. My biggest issue with it is it felt like Tanares Adventures, but not as good, which is why my rating, again, we have a lot of like asterisk ratings here this week. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5, but I did say that I'm not sure if I'm being biased by how much I enjoyed Tanares Adventures. Like, it might be a game that should be a 4. Like, if I played it on its own, maybe it'd be a 4. I don't know for sure. It's hard to say. As of right now, it feels like Tanares Adventures, but weaker to me. And I much, much, much prefer Tanares Adventures, even though this is a cheaper price point, easier to table, lots of pros going for it. But ultimately, for me, the original Tanares Adventures just holds better overall. While this does do one thing slightly better, which is the roguelike elements, I did find that I got that from Odalin, from the same creator. So a 3.5, maybe it'd be a 4 if I hadn't played the better game, in my opinion. Then we had later on Thursday, we had a review for a preview. We had a preview for Apophenia Horror Hunt. This is sponsored content. I did not play the game. I don't know much about it. I covered it. You can check out the video. And then we had a 5 first impressions video where I covered Mythwind, City of the Great Machine, Great Western Trail, Argentina. We had Space Explorers as well as Whitehall. 5 games that I gave first impressions on. Some of them I played multiple times, but in the video I give reasons why they're in the video, like in general, like what made those games stay in the video compared to others. But in all cases, Mythwind I think is very solid, but it's not a game that I'm going to keep on table. City of the Great Machine I think was very good, but I prefer other hidden movement games, although I got a lot of people saying it's best at solo, which kind of has me wanting to play it, but I don't know if I will. We have Great Western Trail Argentina, which is basically a variant of Great Western Trail, which I liked but didn't love. And I do enjoy Great Western Trail, but not as much as other people do. And Argentina is the same kind of vibe. There's things that are better about it, there's things that are worse about it. It's just another version of the game with some small differences, and ultimately falls in the same opinion for me. And then Space Explorers was, to me, Splendor but worse. And lastly, Whitehall is Letters from Whitechapel, but different. And I don't have space for both those. In fact, I don't actually have space for either of those in my collection, because like I said already, I prefer other hidden movement games. And that's basically the games we covered this past week, which brings us to today. Today, that's not true actually. Which brings us to yesterday, because today is Sunday. Yesterday we had Lorcana Gateway review. Just going over the Lorcana Gateway system. I think it does a great job of introducing people to Lorcana. I don't think it's necessary, but I think it's nice. And then later we had a review going up for Intarsia, and I'll talk about both of these next week, because technically this is a Saturday video that happens to be going up Sunday. So we have a review later today, yesterday, going up for Intarsia from Pegasus Spiel. As far as next week / this week, we're going to have a few things. We're going to have a next campaign game video, Purge, probably going up Friday, but we'll see. We also have coverage for Mighty Shot, for Iron Core, as well as a more Primal coming at you. So a bunch of those will be coming your way. More Primal, we have another Primal challenge headed your way. So make sure to stay tuned for more content on a variety of games. And that brings us to the games on the couch, the games I hope to be playing this week. I hope to be keeping it light this week, because I have a lot of stuff to catch up on. We have Nevermind, the Distraction over here. This should be going up, well, not going up, I don't understand that. I haven't played this since in Shrink. Nevermind is a solo game that I hope to play. It's about the restless mind, trying to decide the fates of your wandering thoughts. Very intrigued by this one. Hope to be tabling it soon. We have the Morrison Game Factory, another game from Post Curious. I love their game systems, and this is one that I hope to table. We have Mycelia, which I'm probably about this on camera once or twice, but I was talking to somebody again this past week about it, and that made me want to sit down and pull it out, because I already read the rules, and I need to table and play it. And then we have Nova Era over here from Simon, trying to get the next. Simon has a few new games that came out, like retail-friendly games. They had the last one I talked about, the Nyakuza. They have Nova Era, and then they have Ethnos. And honestly, Ethnos I probably should play as well. But Nova Era and Ethnos hope to play either or both of these this week as well. In any case, until next time, I am Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.